Hi, everybody. Welcome. Today we're talking to Dr. Maya Adam, who is with the Department of Pediatrics at Stanford School of Medicine. And Maya has worked on this really amazing series of videos about gender and kids that we wanted to interview Maya so she could share this video series with our community. So welcome, Maya.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start, Maya, with what really prompted you to create this series?
Well, I've been teaching a course called Critical Issues in Child Health at Stanford since 2009. And about 4 years ago, a student came up to me after the final lecture and said, Dr. Adam, I really enjoyed your class, but you're missing one of the critical issues in child health. You don't have a lecture on transgender children's health. And I thought to myself, you're absolutely right. And I also thought to myself, I don't know very much about this topic area. And so it was a little bit of a wake-up call to me. And it caused me to go and approach some pediatricians at Stanford and in the area who deal with these issues all the time, who work with transgender children and their families. And I started to learn about this group of children that I really did not know much about. Even though I had made it through medical school and was teaching at a good university, I really had not learned about these children. And so we started then to meet some of the families in our area who have transgender children. And as I heard their stories, I was so moved by the similarities between all of us as parents. We really all just want our children to live in a world that's going to celebrate them, that's going to love them unconditionally. And I just saw so much commonality between the parents that I was speaking with and myself. And I just thought, how powerful would it be if we could get some of these stories out into the general public so that other people who were unfamiliar with transgender children's health could also just have an introduction to the topic area.
So can you give us a brief overview of what is in the series?
Sure. So the series consists of 18 very short videos. We understand that everybody's busy, so the videos are between about 2 and 6 minutes each, and they alternate between story videos, which are illustrated podcasts basically, and then short teaching videos. And the hope is that the power of the human story to engage the learner will really keep people coming back each time, because once they finish a short, simple teaching video, they get to hear another story. And the stories are really, I find them very inspiring. The stories of parental dedication, of courage, of love. The children who speak are just remarkably intelligent and well-spoken, and they explain things in ways that the smartest academic could not hope to achieve. And so I think that's the real power of the series.
If a parent wanted to use these videos to help explain their situation to a family member or friend, what would you suggest they do? Are there a certain few that you would start with, or what would you suggest that they start with?
So we've set it up in a way that we thought made sense. We started out, the first video features a 7-year-old transgender girl explaining to the adults what this is about. And you cannot argue with a smart 7-year-old who's explaining things in the simplest terms. So that's why we chose to start with that video. Parents might also like to use that to start any discussions with family. We then follow it very closely with a teaching video that just explains what is the difference between gender identity and sex assigned at birth, which is kind of one of the biggest initial concepts that people have to grasp, that these are distinct. And so I think that starting with those videos, and maybe even going in order, if you have the bandwidth, it probably makes sense. But just to reiterate that these resources were created for open use. So anybody who is teaching a small group of people or wanting to have a one-on-one discussion with a family member, any schools can use these videos. They're really resources for the public.
Great. And what do you hope that parents and people who watch the video series will get out of it?
Hmm. You know, when I heard these stories of these families and when I started to learn about this area of medicine, I was really struck by the similarities between all of our families. And so I hope that parents will really develop a sense of compassion for a group of children that they might not know much about. And I hope that they'll be able to see that the parents of these children are often, very similar. And basically it could have been any of us. Any of us can have a child who needs a little bit of special support. I have a child with celiac disease, and it took me a long time to learn about what gluten is and how to get it out of this child's diet. I then had to work with the school to make sure that he would be safe there, and I had to educate my family members about this food allergy and how we had to take it seriously. And so I think whenever any of us has a child that is in need of some extra support, because actually the society around the child doesn't know enough about the needs of the child, we all behave in very similar ways. And I think that common thread, that commonality, is something that can bring us all together as we try, as really a community of parents, to build a world that is ready to receive our children and to love our children.
Is there anything that you were surprised by when making this series?
Yes, I was surprised at sort of the role that really changing the environment, the massive role that is going to play in predicting the health outcome of a transgender child. I remember speaking to a father of a first grader, a transgender girl, and he was describing to me how the parents had been incredibly supportive of this child, how they had worked with the school to make sure that the school was going to be a safe, accepting place for this child. And their community was also really, everything was in place for this child to thrive. And yet at the end of our discussion, he looked at me and he said, right now, everything is looking pretty good, but the one thing that scares me is who's going to love my child. And that really struck a chord in me, because I think we all have that fear as parents. What happens when we're gone and my child has to fend for themselves in this world? And one of our biggest fears as parents is that the world is not going to accept and celebrate our child. So I think in that moment when the father said that, I sort of began to feel that there's a clock ticking and we have about 13 years left to get the world right for this child and for all the other transgender children in the world. So we definitely have a lot of work to do.
And were there any stories that you found particularly inspiring?
There was one story that actually we received the audio for the story from StoryCorps, and it was the story of a mother of a young transgender boy. And at one point, it's a short 2-minute video, and the mother asks her child if he ever wanted to tell her and then decided not to. And he tells her in that recording that he had tried about 4 times to tell her, and he didn't tell her because he thought she liked him as a girl. And in that moment, I realized, there could be things all of our children are afraid to tell us because they think we like them a certain way. And that's a bit of an eye-opener as a parent, and a reminder of the importance of telling our children that no matter what they no matter what they feel, no matter what they, feel inside of them, no matter what they want to express to us, it's not going to change how much we love them.
Well, Maya, thank you so much for talking with us today. And thank you. I can't thank you enough for creating this really wonderful resource. It's going to be very helpful.
Well, thank you. And Pam, thank you so much for everyone at Gender Spectrum for all of your wonderful work. One of the common themes that came up in many of the families said that they first really found a toolkit for understanding when they attended a conference at Gender Spectrum. So thank you for all the great work you're doing as well.